Demartini, we'd like to welcome you along, and it is so magnificent an opportunity that we have, myself and Antonella, to be able to sit and chat with such a great mind as yours. And just for everybody watching the video, John is on a mission and vision, and has been for many years, to empower people with knowledge and with wisdom so that you can live and find your life and live your life based on your purpose and your mission and your vision. And in doing that, travels the world, has done for many, many decades now, and has changed and altered the lives of so many people, including myself and Antonella. Antonella, for those of you listening, as you know, is a warrior and a game changer and a survivor. And as you know, many of you, Antonella was so terminally ill that she was faced with her demise within 24 to 48 hours of life left in her body. She sits here today as a survivor and a warrior and a game changer. And Antonella is the key, the driving engine, the force behind the workshops that many of you know that we run. Welcome along, Dr. Demartini, and welcome along, Antonella Traino.
Thank you. And welcome, Dr. John Demartini.
Thank you. Thank you.
Evolve was born during that time that I was very ill. One of the things that I used to do every day while I was in my hospital bed on a leukapheresis machine, where they were filtering out my blood, and I had to sit for 4 hours a day and not move, I would spend that time visualizing my future. And one of those things was to create a retreat. So in those moments, that was a big vision for me, that if I had a chance to live my life again, I would create this retreat and run these events. And I grew up with many limitations of how I should live my life and what was possible for me. So basically the life that I dreamed about wasn't possible for me. Over the years, I did a lot of work, a lot of Dr. John Demartini's work, and it inspired me so much, and it showed me that my dreams were in fact possible. It slowly started to close the gap between who I was and who I wanted to be. But it wasn't until I got really sick that was actually the moment of really deciding that I had to live my life differently. So then here we are.
So, Dr. Demartini, there's a consequence to not living by your purpose. Can you give us some enlightening words on that?
Your physiology with its symptoms, your psychology with its intuition, your sociology with the feedback by responses from people, are constantly offering you feedback to get you to become authentic, to get you to live by priority on the path of meaning and efficiency. And wisdom is being able to discern the messages of the feedback. So our body is doing everything it can to offer us feedback, but we've been indoctrinated that if you have any symptom whatsoever, you take a pill to get rid of the symptom instead of understanding that symptoms are your guides. You know, somebody pigs out and overeats, for instance, and the next day they wake up with a puffy face, indigestion, cramps, bloat, oily skin, fatigue, difficulty breathing. They immediately go to the allopathic physician and says, well, you need an antacid, an anti-flatulent, an antihistamine, an anti-this, an anti-that. And then what they do is they get rid of the symptoms, and instead of getting the feedback from the symptoms to let you know you pigged out. So the question is, the symptoms an illness or the symptoms a feedback of wellness? I'm a believer that your body, if you interpret them, applied physiology, if you listen to it very wisely and know what those autonomic responses are, they can guide you wisely to help you love, appreciate, and live authentically. Whenever we're living by what we value most authentically, we've been taught that you get rid of your symptoms, and symptomless is somehow healthy. And so our body is, and our psychology, physiology, psychology, are both offering a feedback. And then if we get resentful to somebody and get cocky and aggressive, and assertive. And so I would never do that. I'm always this way. Then what happens is we get a narcissistic quotient goes up. We start to treat people and look down on them. They criticize and challenge us to humble us. And we attract symptoms from society, sociological feedback in the form of criticisms and praises or whatever, in order to get us back into authenticity, because we're now exaggerating ourselves. And if we're humble, people lift us up. If we're cocky, people pull us down to try to get us into homeostasis. So our sociology is constantly trying to offer us feedback to authenticity. All they are is feedback mechanisms from dissociations from fears to try to help us get back into a state of awe and what we could call the perfection, the hidden order of life.
So if a person can integrate that, then they can bring about healing to their body. So say, for example, somebody has had a long-standing resentment towards their husband's family, and they can't stand to be around the family. They can't stand the mother-in-law, and logically they understand what you're saying. But how do they actually do that? Is there a process or something that they can do to actually really get that in their heart?
What specific trait, action or inaction, are you perceiving your mother-in-law or father-in-law displaying or demonstrating that you dislike, despise, or hate most? And get really clear, because if you talk nebulousness, you don't get anything accomplished. You just, what specifically are they doing that's pushing the button? And narrow it down to not hearsay from somebody else, but something that's fact that you perceived, something that's not broad generalities like abusive, because that doesn't tell you what they did. Not something about how you feel about it, because that's your perception of it, not their actions. And identify what it is that they did. Once we identify it and document it, we then ask the question of accountability. All right, Dr. Demartini, go to a moment where and when you perceive yourself displaying or demonstrating that same specific action or inaction that you perceive in them that you resented most. And at first you're going to say, no, I'm too proud to admit I do that. I don't do that. I don't do that. Look again. And they had to look at the form in which they were demonstrating the behavior. Once they go in there and identify where they did it and when they did it and who they did it to and who perceived them doing that, and activate the amygdala and hippocampus where it stores these episodic memories and reactivate them from unconscious to conscious, it gradually humbles the distinction between themselves and the individual, and they go from deflective awareness to more reflective awareness, and they start to see, oh my God, the seer, the seeing, and the seen are the same. And they start to humble and realize, well, I'm judging them, but I'm doing the same thing, which is a moral hypocrisy. So then when they stop and they look and they own it until the quantity and quality are equal, which they think is no possible way at first, but once they hold themselves accountable and they see it, they sit there and they go, whoa, what I see in them is me. And the reason I'm not liking them is because I'm judging that in me. I'm feeling ashamed of that because I inculcated and injected some value of some moral hypocrisy from somebody else, mothers, fathers, preachers, teachers, conventions, traditions, or mores, and I'm told that I shouldn't be that way. So they're reminding of what I shouldn't be, but I've done it and I feel ashamed. So all that stuff is sitting inside the individual, and this person's bringing it out as not an enemy, but as a friend to make you go and clear the things that are stored in the subconscious mind you haven't addressed. Once you do that, you now ask another question. When they do that, how does it benefit you? What's the advantages that it's offering? How specifically is this a blessing in your life? So then what you do is you go in there and find out, how did it serve you? And as you come up with the benefits, you go awakening, you bring unconscious information conscious, you start to see that there were benefits the whole time that you overlooked. And all of a sudden, once the advantages and benefits and upsides balance out the downsides, and it becomes neither positive or negative, neither good or evil, your resentment's gone. You have reflective awareness. All of a sudden, you realize that that event is helping you, not hindering you. Then if we go a step further and now go to the moment where and when I did those behaviors and find out how it served the people I did it to, so I dissolved the shame that I had and I was storing, my appreciation for them is our heart opens. And I realized that, I'm sitting there judging them over something that I was judging myself. And the moment I'm not judging myself, I'm not even upset with them. And then if I go a step further and ask, where do I see this individual do the opposite behavior? So I break the labels that they're always that way. They're not always that way. They're a human being with both sides. If you support me and say things a certain way, I can be nice as a pussycat. You challenge me, I can be mean as a tiger, and so can they. So it makes you realize it's not about just them. It's about the dynamic of you learning to love a part of yourself and they're helping you. If you go even further and you ask the question, at the very moment that they're acting that way, who in the world is balancing it, virtually or real, in your life? To balance it, you'll see that it's a homeostatic mechanism to help you love a part of yourself again. And then if you ask the question, if they were to be the way I hope they would be, not the way they are, but the opposite, what would be the drawbacks? Because sometimes we become addicted to fantasies about how people are supposed to be and project those fantasies onto people and not appreciate people because we're comparing them to a fantasy. And that's why we're angry in the first place. But it's our fantasy that's causing that, not their behavior. Anyway, when we go through and ask those 7 questions, all we're left with is a deep appreciation, tears of gratitude, and love for the individual. And when you love people for who they are, they turn into who you love. And so now you realize that it was all just an illusion and a perceptual imbalance.
So, Dr. Demartini, what do you love teaching at the Breakthrough Experience?
I love assisting people in identifying the hierarchy of their values so they can start to prioritize their life. Because when you dedicate yourself to what's highest in priority and delegate what's lowest in priority, you tend to self-actualize and you tend to maximize your potential. So many people are comparing themselves to other people and injecting the values of outer authorities in their life and clouding the clarity of what they feel their mission is and thinking they don't know what it is. And I love to help them realize that your purpose in life is an expression of what you value most. And it's a most efficient, effective pathway to fulfill the greatest amount of voids and emptinesses you feel with the thing that's most fulfilling. And so I help people identify what they value most and how to structure their life and prioritize their actions in such a way that they can do something that is so meaningful that they can't wait to get up in the morning and do it in a way that serves people in a sustainable, fair exchange manner so they can get paid to do what they love and love what they do. So they don't have Monday morning blues and Wednesday hump days and thank God it's Fridays and week friggin' ends and they're don't have a schizophrenic life where they have to go and do something they don't want to do and then go and escape with a vacation to spend all the money they work so hard for. But to be able to make their life the vacation, where their vacation is the same, I love helping people do that. I also love bringing the Demartini method, which is a method I've been developing for over 50 years, to help them see that no matter what's going on, it's on the way, not in the way, and to help them sort through all the emotional vicissitudes that they're trapped in and neutralize them all. So there's just nothing there but grace. There's nothing there but thank you. There's nothing there but appreciation and love for life. And I also love them to show them how to own the traits to realize that whatever you see that you admire in great people, you have. And to help them wake it up and realize where it is and what form it's in so they can honor it instead of compare themselves to others and think they're supposed to be somebody they're not. So they can honor themselves, because people compare themselves to others instead of comparing their daily actions to what they value most. And then they rob themselves of the magnificent power that they have. I mean, there's so much in the breakthrough experience that I love sharing.
At what stage during it do you know when you're presenting, you're going to see the shift? You're going to see the head turning to the next person, the jaw dropping, the aha moment. How far in do you see that?
Well, I'd have to say that it's scattered all the way through, because sometimes when I teach the principles in the morning before we go into practical, that's happening. Because I can tell by their responses, their facial expressions, I can tell by what they say to other people, by their questions. But most of it happens in the afternoon when they go into the practical, because some of them get it with theory, but then when they actually get in there and do the work, and then all of a sudden they start crying and they have to have tissues there because they realize, oh my God, what I've been condemning, I'm doing. That's me. And then all of a sudden when they realize that what that person did that they were upset with was a blessing. And then all of a sudden the judgment on themselves and the other person disappears. And they have tears and they can't stop the tears of gratitude happening. And then they realize that this entire illusion that they had was just dissolved away. I asked people, how many of you learned something this weekend you could have gone your entire life and never have learned if you hadn't been here? And every hand goes up. I said, and how many of you probably have other people you have distorted views of? And all the hands go up. And I said, well, so it's up to you now. You can use this tool and apply this tool and dissolve a lot of the baggage you're carrying around. Otherwise, you're weighing yourself down gravitationally instead of lighting yourself up with radiation and inspiration. So yeah, I see it throughout the breakthrough at various times, but I'd say it crescendos as we go through. And also when I do the grief process and I show them how to dissolve perceptions of loss, a lot of ahas and pennies drop in, because then they realize that when you really love somebody, there's no perception of gain and loss. You feel their presence.
So could I ask you, what is the importance at Evolve of you teaching people about grief and how to manage and see the loss of somebody so close and so dear?
Well, people that are grieving the loss of things, when you write down what they're grieving the loss of, it's only the things that they had infatuated with and admired and liked. They don't ever write down, I'm grieving the loss of they're yelling at me. They only grieve the loss of the things that they admired and looked up to, that supported their values, that created dopamine and oxytocin and kephalons in the brain. And I thought, that's interesting. They don't grieve all parts of them. They only grieve the parts that they were admiring. If I made them list the things they disliked, they did not have a grief over that. They had a relief over that. That grief and relief was there, but they were conscious of the grieving parts and they were unconscious of the relieving parts. So what I did is I found out what exactly is it they're grieving. And then I asked, who has taken on the behaviors the moment that person died? Because the second somebody submerges and dissipates and departs or deceases, somebody else emerges it, like a conservation of traits. Somebody else emerges in your life to provide those behaviors. If you can identify quantitatively who those people are, the moment this person demises, and identify who they are until the quantity is accounted for, and then find the benefits of the new form and neutralize the infatuation and admiration and bring it back into balance so you can love the person. The moment you do, the grief is gone. And the moment the grief is gone, they feel the presence of the individual and they can have that dialogue. And they can say what they want to say that they didn't get to say before they passed. And there's thank you and I love yous back and forth, and there's tears. And after that, there's no grief.
So I'm really looking forward to Evolve Italy this year. And what I love most about Evolve is that I love seeing people transform. When we first start out, people come and they've got their arms crossed and you can feel the block, but by the end of it, their hearts just open. And I just love that so much, that it makes all of the challenges that I go through to do this worth it. So that's what I love the most. And I'm really looking forward to having you, Dr. Demartini, coming to speak at Evolve Italy this year. And you know, I'd like to know, what are you looking forward to sharing at Evolve with us this year?
Well, what I'm looking forward to doing is finding out what are the challenges, the perceptions, the experiences that people are facing, so I can navigate and deliver information that I feel certain will help them transform perceptions and their experiences in such a way where everything is on the way, not in the way. There's nothing your mortal body can experience that your mortal soul can't love. There's nothing that's come into your life that you can't transform and see it as on the way, not in the way. And what I love doing is helping people ask themselves a new set of questions, see through a new lens, a new set of eyes, the same experience in such a way where it's no longer a burden, it's fuel. Because, you know, I had a lady that came to me, she claimed that my mother abused me and abandoned me. And I said, okay, great. So what did you think you missed out when your mom left? And she said, I didn't get guidance and I didn't get this. We made a list of things. And I asked her, who provided that? Who took over the moment your mom left? Well, my aunt and my grandmother and my best friend's mother and another best friend's mother and a teacher, they became kind of like my surrogate mom. Great. What was the benefit of them being in your life instead of your mom? And we stacked up the benefits. I learned languages. I got to pass school. And if your mom had been there, what would have been the drawback? And first she said there wouldn't have been a drawback because she was holding on to a fantasy about how her mom was supposed to be. I said, what would have been the drawback? And all of a sudden she said, wow, something my aunt told me that I wasn't willing to hear until just now. She said, your mom, when you were a child, left you in a bathtub in overheated water and forgot you were there, and you almost drowned and burned and scalded. Your mom had bipolar condition, and she came to me and asked if I could raise you because she felt unworthy of such a magnificent child because she couldn't take care of her. When she remembered that her aunt told her that, but she blocked it out, she realized that I'm special, not a reject. And that my mom loved me enough to make sure I had a better training than what she could provide, a better life. It wasn't because she left me. She didn't abuse me. She loved me. The same event was transformed into something of gratitude. This woman went on to lose a bunch of weight, change her looks, go on back and educate herself further, write a book, thank her mom, appreciate the people that took on the surrogate roles. She saw it on the way. What she thought was abuse wasn't. What she thought was a mistake and an abandonment wasn't, because she had a perception that changed. That's what I want to bring to the people in Italy at Evolve. I want to bring to them new sets of questions, new methodologies and principles that I know from all the 50 years of working will transform and give them the power to transform anything they've been through. There's nothing that they've experienced that can't be transformed. And they may not believe it, but I'm certain they can do it, and I'm going to help them do it. So that's what I look forward to doing. I look forward to bringing, information. I've been standing on the shoulders of giants and reading, studying, and learning for 52 years almost. I can't wait to download some of that information and give them the tools that I know they'll use the rest of their life to transform whatever comes along the way. And because I really believe that anything you can't say thank you for is baggage. Anything you can say thank you for is fuel. So they can look forward to having some thankfulness when I'm there. That's what I'm going to bring to them. Tools and principles and methodologies to help them be grateful for their life. And when they're grateful for their life, they get more power. And I want to help them have clarity about their mission and clarity about their magnificence and clarity about the contribution that they can make, so they can realize that they can have an astronomical vision and be able to have a global impact in their life if they want it. There's nothing that they've experienced, and no matter what they've done or not done, they're worthy of love. I want to show them how to love themselves so they're not holding themselves back with a delusion about who they're supposed to have been and not honoring the way they have been.
John, thanks for being here today.
Thank you for our dialogue and our questions, and I look forward to our adventure in Italy.